I lost my phone already. I'm live. According to this, I am live. Oh no, it didn't edit properly. Let's see if that fixes everything. Anyways, well, regardless, I still learning how to do this. Hello there, Tom Holyby with Ashgar Defense. And this is a new thing I'm going to attempt to make somewhat regular, which is Musashi stuff. And it's not just Musashi, but it's the overall training, pop culture references and such like that, but have it be on Monday because, well, Musashi and Monday both start with M, and I'm unimaginative like that. So, welcome to whoever's there. And shit. Forgive me, I'm learning. And I want to talk about training Ozempic. Specifically, the behaviors that I keep seeing pop up throughout the training sphere, and why that's not a good thing. So my account was permanent. Oh, someone else's account was permanently banned. Making sure I'm live where I'm supposed to be live. So anyways, for those who don't know what Ozempic is it started out as a diabetes medication that would help diabetics manage their symptoms and also not eat. Well, what was rapidly discovered about this drug is that it has an effect on the hormones in our brains and makes us feel full. It convinces us that we are full and we don't need to eat. And so a whole bunch of celebrities, and you may have noticed a lot of them did it, like Adele and some of these other high-end, big name celebrities, went and lost a crap ton of weight, but never seemed to change their eating habits or start hitting the gym, which is the common thing that we do to lose weight, get physically fit, get strong, all that good stuff. It's because they started taking Ozempic. They just convinced their hormones that they didn't need to be hungry anymore, and therefore they didn't eat. Well, as with many things, there is a consequence to such cheat codes and cop-outs in anything, and that is osteoporosis, muscular atrophy, and early onset Alzheimer's symptoms at the ripe old age of 26. Yes, turns out if you try to cheat the system has a way of making it all right and balance out in the end. So what's the big deal? These people get skinny and they fall apart and die. What does that have to do with training? Well, it's a habit I keep seeing people pop up with, the cheat codes and ways to bypass and all this crap and hoopla. And what's worse is there's instructors out there that are kind of monetizing off of the same snake oil, and that is training Ozempic, i.e., don't do your dry fire practice, or more likely, do this trick or train in this specific way without context, without criteria, without scenario, without any sort of stimulus, and you will come out on top of any possible gunfight you could possibly get into. I mean, absolute poppycock, but there they are. And I've been thinking about this for a while. I did a write up not that long ago about Ozempic trainers and Ozempic students. And I got thinking, and there was a pistol class I took a long time ago with a well known instructor whose name I will not mention. Before I was allowed to leave the range, I was required to unload and show clear. Of course, not being a shitty student, I unloaded, showed clear, and then I was allowed to leave. I was also told in passing that I was not allowed to practice anything that I had learned at this class at the hotel that I was staying at. Why? I didn't ask because, well, it seemed like a foolish reason. And it seemed like a foolish thing, and I wasn't going to ask a silly question. It got me thinking, though. If it's so important for an instructor to make mention that you should not be doing your dry fire practice at the hotel room because you don't want to have holes blown into the wall, why bother teaching me anything? What was the purpose of me showing up if I'm not supposed to practice anything outside of your view? Or did you mean that I was supposed to only practice when you're in my view? So it got me thinking, well, what's going on here? Why is it that we as instructors tell people do your dry fire practice? Because that's the investment. That's your investment into yourself. You know, you can attend 1,000 classes from whichever instructor, you name them, I don't care, doesn't matter. But if you don't go home and do your own personal dry fire practice, none of it matters. And at that same class, whose name I will not mention, I saw a student. This was like their 5th or 6th or 7th, some crazy number of taking that same class. So I thought to myself, well, your performance should be incredible. Do you take this class 5 times? You should be really, really fucking good. He was not. And I'm not disparaging him, and I'm not disparaging the instructor because, simply put, he didn't do his homework. This is the Ozempic part to it. You know, this is the challenge of it. I went to the instructor, I got the certificate. I don't need to do anymore because I got this piece of paper that says I'm a gunfighter, and so therefore I already know everything there is. I know a few people who are just like that, and I know a lot of people who they don't retain any of the information that they go out to receive. They don't retain anything that they paid for. They don't even take notes, really. I've seen too many people just not take notes during classes, not just mine, but other people's classes, just no notes are being taken. But they expect a certificate at the end of it because, well, I paid the money and I played your little game. So give me my piece of paper that says I can kill people and I'm quite good at it. Man, if only it was that simple. You know, it's an ongoing issue. It's something I've seen more times than I ought to have, and I'm sure many people out there are quite familiar with that person. Look, you either are something or you are not something. A piece of paper isn't a deciding factor as to what you are or not. You may be a doctor and you may be a surgeon, but if you're not practicing, if you're not staying up to date, if you're not staying on top of yourself, you're not a very good surgeon, and you won't be a surgeon for long if that's what you do. Uh, I will tell you all this. When you meet an instructor, any instructor, doesn't matter who, you're allowed to question them. Believe it or not, when you hand your instructor, when you hand me money or any other instructor money, you are allowed to interrogate them as to what they're about, right? You know, hey, what's the last class you took? Hey, what's the last thought process you had or piece of information you had that you weren't entirely sure about, but you studied about and you learned something new? When's the last time you learned something new? What's the last seminar you attended? What's the last class you attended as the instructor? To which an instructor should be able to tell you with reasonable certainty and uh, clarity what the last class they took was. Kind of like your doctor, right? You're going to go in for hip surgery. You're allowed to ask your doctor, hey, what's the last seminar you took? When was the last time you attended a conference on the latest techniques in surgery and the latest ways to perform surgeries without over complications or any kind of complications, really? You're allowed to do that, and you're allowed to do that with your instructors. You are full and free to say, hey, I'm curious about the information. I'm curious about how well you've put this together. Please do explain when the last class you took was, and did you learn anything? It's important because your instructor should be capable of learning. It's not just a regurgitation of information at you. It's a presentation of information with your very much needed participation. So that's an example of an Ozempic trainer. These dudes who go out there and they'll say, well, I was a whatever the fuck, whenever the fuck, and that's all you need to know about me. No, that's not. I need to know a lot more about you. You can't just rest on your laurels as an application of your skill or as a reason for why you can instruct me. It's a little bit more behind it than just you were XYZ at XYZ time. Who did you learn from? Who taught you? Well, I was in the military. Okay, so who is your drill sergeant's instructor? Who is your drill sergeant? Who is the guy who taught you to do things? These things kind of matter. You just make it up on the spot. Good evening. So that's an example of Ozempic instructors. Individuals who are no longer interested in learning, individuals who are no longer interested in understanding, individuals who are far more interested in floating their own ego. And that in and of itself is a problem because, well, egotistical instructors are dangerous instructors. They're reckless instructors. Let me rephrase that. They are reckless instructors because they're more interested in their self-aggrandization than they are in their students. That's a problem. Do what I say when I say how I say it, and because without regard to, well, I can't do that as a civilian. It's dangerous. That's reckless information that you're passing out there. I've seen enough students and enough instructors all claim these various things. And it's like, who told you to do that? I must know because they must be shamed. That's not something you should ever do. This is how we get those people who say, shoot them and then drag them in the house. Did you think that the investigators weren't going to know where and when you shot this guy? All right, why are you dragging him in the house? So that's something that's been on my mind a lot lately is the Ozempic behavior. A friend of mine, Paul, brought up how when we got these things, these magical devices known as cell phones, and they had a connection to the World Wide Web, wherever, whenever. And Bill Gates came out and said, or Steve Jobs, one of them came out and said that all people would be smarter after that came out because it was out than they are today. I would argue that we are all now way, way dumber than we used to be. That's because we don't need to learn anymore. I have all the answers in the phone. This is the Ozempic of information. I'm not going to actually study. I'm not going to look. I'm just going to read the headline, and that makes me an expert on all things. That's why all these people who still can't tell you where the hell these countries are suddenly war experts on various countries. All those people who came out and said, I'm an expert on Ukraine, and I know everything there is to know. Okay, tell me where Ukraine is on a map. Tell me where Israel is on a map. Tell me where Burma is on a map. How about Yemen? Tell me where any of these countries are on a map. Well, the news article I was looking at didn't tell me where it was. And I should take you seriously? Um, but no, back to training Ozempic. Uh, these there's enough of these people who go out there, they don't do their dry fire practice, or what's worse is they're not invested in the learning process of their own dry fire practice. I would do demonstrations, but I am streaming to YouTube and Facebook, and I do not want to get sniped out of the internet off my live streams. I just started, but I've seen it enough times where they'll do their draws, but they'll get snagged up in their shirts. And they do this thing called reset, and they'll reset the whole deal. And okay, now I got it. I would tell you, don't do the resets. Do the follow through. Present the weapon anyways. Don't get into this habit of having perfect draw strokes each and every time. Well, you don't understand, Tom. When I was at the class and I had my battle belt on and all my Gucci gear on, I was allowed to do whatever the hell I wanted. And every draw stroke was perfect because I didn't have this cover garment in the way. Well, yes. And now that you're doing your dry fire practice with your cover garment, do yourself the favor and follow through. Oh, shirt snagged up in it. Okay, take the shirt off of it and continue through. Because in a unfortunate encounter, you're not going to be allowed to tell the threat, hey, go back over there. I fucked up my draw and I want to be able to start this over again. And it's only fair if you start back over there. Yeah, okay. That'll work. And no, you cheat yourself out of prime learning. The best instructor you have is yourself. So long as you're willing to learn from yourself, learn from your mistakes, and slow down. I know it's hard. I see too many people just try to go fast. I'm going to let you in on an industry secret. Most of those dudes out there that you see do those really, really, really fast draws and shoots and all this other shit, it's fucking edited. I know, crazy. They edit the shit out of their stuff. And editing software has gotten so good that they look really fast and clean. They're not. A lot of dudes out there who have jobs teaching other people and have gotten caught making their videos appear faster than what they really are. So just a little training, an industry secret. I may people may yell at me about that. Well, you see, fast and accurate is all that matters. It's not. I can almost 100% guarantee it's not. There's a little bit more to it. And if it were that important, you wouldn't need to edit your videos to demonstrate that. It would just be something you were good at and something you could do. Right? Just a thought process on that. So, but no, this is an ongoing challenge within this industry, is the Ozempic training. It's training Ozempic. And there's a lot of instructors that are all too eager to take your money for it. I watched a video not too long ago, and I will learn how to put video overlays here at one point or another, and that'll be good. And in that video, the instructor spent 6 fucking minutes talking about draw stroke from an outside the waistband holster. 6 fucking minutes. To which he then suddenly makes it into a competition between these two students. You know, who's faster, who's better, and who shoots more accurate. And it's fine to work on that, so long as I know that there's going to be at some point some movement involved with it. But given that I know for a fact most of these people don't practice any grade of movement, it's a lot of wasted time. And I did not know one could spend 6 minutes going over the meticulous tiny details of... Don't hit the microphone, Tom. So that was something interesting for me to learn. And then the instructor, of course, being of ego more than anything else, said, well, I'm going to take part in this shooting competition and show up all my students. A friend of mine just told me about an instructor and an experience he had with an instructor. Uh, here's how most instruction goes. I describe the concept to you, right? So we'll start with drawing a gun. My methodology is you should probably move your feet before you move your cover garment. If we were to break it down to microseconds, it would move feet, grab shirt, draw gun, present gun, shoot gun, all while moving continuously and within about a second. Then I will have you do it, or I will demonstrate it. If my instructions are unclear, I will be more than happy to demonstrate. And then you'll do it, and it will probably be wrong, or it'll be right. Doesn't really matter. It's not for me. It's for you. That's how it should go. Explanation, presentation, demonstration, right? What my friend explained to me was that the instructor said, do it, and then spent the better part of the rest of the time showing people why everything that they did was wrong. Demonstrates to me that that individual doesn't actually know the material that they're teaching. They're regurgitating material that they taught, that they learned, and they have spent zero amount of time actually learning the material that they're teaching. Because kind of break it down like this. If I were to tell you reload a Kalashnikov style gun, you would probably use a magazine, kick out the old magazine, rock in new, and then you would either come under to run the charging handle or you would come over to run the charging handle. Now, if I know the material, and I've actually studied this stuff myself, I don't care if you come under or come over. I honestly don't care. I don't care if you grab new magazine, rock it with your thumb instead of the magazine. None of that matters because the goal is to reload the AK, reload the Kalashnikov. If I don't understand, then suddenly the little particulars about, well, it should be with this magazine, and that's how you have to do it. You have to use a magazine to kick it out and then rock it in, and then you have to come under. And if that's the absolutist mindset you have on that, that means you're just regurgitating what you saw. An instructor told you how to do this at one point, and now that is what you've locked onto. You haven't experimented or even tried the other ways to do it. That's an Ozempic instructor. And these are quite common. These instructors are far more common than I used to think that they were. When you take these classes, I want you to understand, you spend upwards of $500 depending on the class. So for me, it's $400 for the class. It's 300 rounds of ammunition. You're going to have to get a hotel because Centralia, Washington is right in the middle of the state, right? You got the state, and over here Seattle and Tacoma and all that. You got to come straight to the middle here. That's where Centralia, Washington is, hence Centralia. So you're going to have a hotel, you have travel expenses, everything else. So you're probably, and that's if you already own the gun. If you're buying a gun, then you're at upwards of $1,000, probably more on everything involved with getting training. I want you to get as much out of that as you possibly can because I understand money's not cheap. Time's not cheap. None of this stuff is cheap. So what I want you to do is take a shit ton of notes, even stuff you don't think matters, even stuff you've already heard from other people. Do it again. Write what I said down. It may not be as eye-opening as what the last guy or the way the last guy said it was, but you should probably write it down nonetheless because, well, you paid for it. Might as well write it down. And then go home and do your dry fire practice. Really study what I said. Examine what I said, what I demonstrated, what you did. Get the most out of your training. It's expensive. Okay? I procured, well, my wife procured 2 more copies of the exact same book. I know, this is going to be crazy. It's called the Hagakure. The Hagakure. And, whoops, almost dropping books. The Hagakure. I know, shocking. What's interesting is these 3 books were translated by 3 different translators. This matters. 3 different translators for the same book from Japanese to English. Why would you buy 3 copies of the same book? Because it's different translations. The same thing is said 3 different times, and what didn't resonate with me in one way of it being said may resonate with a different way of it being said. Similar to the Bible. It's got like 1,000 different translations from Aramaic, which is the original language it was spoken in, and Latin to English and all the other languages. So it's probably likely that the Catholic version and the King James version and the New King James version and the Orthodox version and all these different versions will tell you the exact same thing, but utilize different words to do that. This is how to help you keep from being an Ozempic student. It's a lot of information, right? You come out, you take a class with me, then you was like, all right, well, I'm going to go train with another guy. Take notes on everything he said too. Well, he said the same thing you said, Tom. Word for word, verbatim? Or is it more likely that he said something that sounded similar, but he used different vernacular to do that? And that different vernacular may resonate with you better than it does than what I said. It's just something to think about, really. And then go do your dry fire practice. Make the investment into yourself. Just by being in the same room as any given instructor is not enough. It's nowhere near enough. It's playing patty cake. You know, you're not going to gain this information by osmosis. You kind of have to invest the time, the money, and the effort. Sorry, allergy season, spring. So that's something that's been on my mind a lot today and a bit yesterday is training Ozempic and what I would consider the pandemic of this lazy guy stuff. You know, I understand that there's a lot of instructors who are putting out a lot of video content nowadays, and you know the problem is editing makes all of it look really, really good, doesn't it? I've seen some really haphazard drills and really haphazard behaviors that all look really, really fucking good just because of the editing. So it's something to be paying attention to, and quite possibly avoiding if you can. So there you have it. Moving right along, part of the Musashi Monday stuff, because I cannot for the life of me remember to actually record a normal video on a Monday when it comes to Musashi. And yes, I am a big student of Musashi's. You could even call me a fanboy. It doesn't really bother me. There's a bit to the man that I think a lot of people have kind of disregarded over the years. They say, well, he's just some old samurai and we've got guns now. And what does he know about guns? And, you know, it's cringe, brah, that you would follow ancient samurai wisdom. I don't know. If you actually draw the parallels, it actually makes a fuck ton of sense. And you're wrong anyways, because guns did exist in feudal Japan when Musashi was running around. It was just they were matchlock, so not super useful on an island nation, especially if it was just you, right? You go bang, okay, powder, wad, bullet, tam, cock, blah, blah. Okay, powder, wad. So obviously by Musashi's time, guns are kind of fucking useless, but we've gotten to the point where guns are much, much better. So, of course, it's on the bottom. More specifically, and this is the specifics of what I want to cover on any given moment of Musashi is to cover his dokudo, dokkodo, um, because it's important and it's good life advice, in my personal opinion, and it will help make you a better person. I think. Um, I've made a few videos on this, and then I kind of stopped at number 3 because I couldn't really figure out how to do the video. That makes any sense? Um, and again, we have the challenge of multiple definitions, multiple translations. Uh, in this translation, it says here for number 3, I harbored no biased feelings. Um, and the more common translation, it would be, do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling. Uh, and what that is, are you being objective in your thought process? Are you actually thinking about what you're doing, or are you going off of loose stimuli and a whim? Right? Well, you got to follow your gut. Maybe if my gut's correct, but is it correct? Is it always correct? I don't know. Some people drink and drive, and they choose to do that before they start drinking. Would you say that that was a partial feeling, or was that a well thought out feeling? I went with my gut on that. Yeah, that's why a lot of people die for drunk driving. But no, uh, do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling. You examine it, think about it, articulate it. Everything you do should be articulable, right? If you apply it to martiality, why are you shooting this guy? Well, because he has a knife or a gun or a whatever. He has a whatever. And he's threatening me with that whatever. He has ability, he has opportunity, and he has intent. You have to fill out those 3 criteria in order to do anything. None of that is partial. None of that is a feeling, right? Either he's definitely a threat and you should probably deal with that, or he's not. There's no in between on that, right? If you think about a cop, an average cop has the ability to do you harm, has the opportunity to do you harm, but he lacks the intent to do you harm. These are the things that kind of matter in this, right? So that's just this one little tidbit, and then I probably going on in the future I'll hit one of these a week on a Monday, because why not, and talk about other such things. For example, Pakistan and India. And I loaded this up, but I suck. So you'll have to bear with me, those who are watching. Man, sure would be cool if I could remember to capitalize things. What the fuck? There we go. So this has been all over my news feed. I don't know about yours. Because suddenly people become war experts every time a new war erupts. I know all about Pakistan and India. I'm going to tell you that regardless of what happens, I really, really, really want them to have a ceasefire. And here's why. Both these countries are nuclear capable. Yeah. I love all the people who's like, good, let them kill each other. No, stop them from doing that, please. I have noticed that there's been a considerable drop in Indian spam callers. I understand, and that makes me happy too. But I would most certainly like it if they didn't wipe each other off the face of the planet. It's just something, especially with nuclear weapons, because that leads to fallout. That leads to everyone else being affected by that. If ever there was a war I wanted the United States to be involved with, this would be it. Maybe make them stop doing that. Right? So that's my only 2 cents on Pakistan and India, because other than that, I know nothing about what happened. One day I'm seeing that tensions are rising in the Kashmir province, and the next thing I know, India's fired missiles into Pakistan, and that's all I know. I don't know if it was justified or not justified. All I could say is, hey, don't you two have nukes? Yes, probably should stop, right? Okie dokie. Ah, we're gonna have to make that quit. So that's that. That's the Pakistan and India stuff. Moving right along to uh, observations. See, what's nice about living in the 21st century is everything's fucking recorded. And I will one day learn how to put videos up here. Hopefully, the next time I do this, I'll actually have that ironed out. But I just saw, and I shared on my Facebook page, observations from combat. It seems to me that optics don't seem to survive long in major conflicts. And what I mean by that is in Ukraine and apparently Burma and a number of these other places where the combatants seem to be equally trained, equally skilled, uh, optics, flashlights, and doodads don't seem to last long. I.e., EOTechs, aim points. Occasionally, I'll see a Trijicon sticking to a rifle, but a lot of these things don't last long for the long-term combatants. I do see the occasional Merc has his stuff still squared away, but I do know that those guys do eventually, leave and go back to wherever it is they live. Meanwhile, Ukrainians, they just get an AKs, and so why do I bring this up? Well, because I'm kind of tired of seeing rifles without iron sights on them. I'm not understanding that logic. There's way, 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 way too many rifles without irons. Now, look, if this is a purpose-driven rifle for your for competition, by all means, do what you want. But I more often than not see these rifles, and the next thing I hear is, "This is my shit hit the fan rifle." Without irons? That doesn't seem like a good idea to me. It's just a thought process. I don't know, but um, I would strongly suggest you put irons on, because so far all I've seen are these guns that have irons and no dots whatsoever. And yes, I know. Well, in Burma they're poor. Okay, that sure, not arguing with you. But Ukraine has received billions of dollars from the United States in aid. I'm pretty sure optics and other such things would have probably been in some of those shipments, and yet I keep seeing Ukrainians without optics on their shit. Russia, I do know, produces their own optics and shit, and I'm pretty sure that they would have issued rifles with optics and shit. So I'm going to guess that the only reason I'm not seeing optics on anybody's stuff outside of Western powers going into places where people eat dirt is because those optics don't survive. Probably trying to track down a C123 battery in the middle of a battlefield is not the best idea anybody ever had for those EOTechs. And finding those, what are they, CT batteries for like an aim point, T2, T1, probably not something that you're going to be able to easily find in a battlefield. And God forbid if that cover plate falls off and now the battery will go boop. Yeah, it's not a fun time. I have seen that happen in training in classes. I saw somebody's very expensive aim point, the little battery cover on there. It had wound itself out because the O-ring that's meant to keep it from twisting had deteriorated somehow. The whole plate fell off. The battery went out with it. We couldn't find the battery. His dot was dead. Thankfully, though, he had these things called iron sights that he was able to resort to and finish up the class. And that's kind of what I'm getting to. All these people who go out there and say, I've seen plenty of iron sights break. I doubt that strongly. Like, break? Because I'm going to need you to show it to me. I commonly see this from competition guys who are like, I've seen plenty of iron sights shear off the gun. Yeah, like the cheap Glock sights, the sights that come on the Glock, yeah, those break all the fucking time. But if you're talking like, I don't know, good set of XS sights or night vision sights, I doubt that strongly that you're seeing those break. And regardless of whether you have or have not, it's still a good idea to have those on your gap just in case, right? I don't know. My suspicion is this is a lot of people who spent a lot more money on gear and are trying to validate how much money they spent on gear over actually training themselves. Because I would be the first person to tell you that a rifle is not just a rifle. That is also a club. And if you have the capability of putting a bayonet on it, well, then it's not just a club, it's a spear with a sticky bit. So I have an what's the word, affinity for rifles with bayonet lugs and bayonets, because I'm attend my classes. I will be doing BBB at the end of July, beginning of August, after the muster in Pennsylvania with Tremis Dynamics and a number of others. My BBB class, you'll go into some depth about and understanding about why potentially having alternative tools available to you beyond just the rifle and ammunition is probably a good idea. Especially if we're talking about bedside stuff, right? If you look over there, this isn't my bedroom, so why is that in here? If it's not in your bedroom, because it's useless. It's all useless. All that crap is useless. I know. Tom just said body armor and gas masks and what the fuck else is on there? Battle belts without magazines in them are useless. I did, because I'm not going to fucking... Well, you'll just have to attend the class. I am working on a website for those who wish to sign up for certain classes. I am trying to fix myself in that way. I will have website up reasonably soon. It's work in progress. I didn't know making websites was this hard again. Anyways, the point is, optics appear to be a short man's game and a long man's loss. And what I mean by that is, in immediate conflict, i.e., home invasion, or gas station robbery attempts, any of those places, optics and flashlights and having stuff hard mounted and attached to your gun are great, because they make you shoot not better, but they make the shooting process easier. But so far from what I've seen on these long-term conflicts with artillery, tanks, and artillery on both sides and tanks on both sides, mortars on both sides, none of these things seem to be holding up and sticking around. I'm kind of curious what the reasoning is behind all that, and I'm sure more information will be made readily available. I do know that in Burma they're running off of old Vietnam era crap. They're not running the latest and greatest whatever the hell and whatever the fuck. So that might be it. But then you kind of have to ask yourself this question. They don't have all that stuff, and yet they're still in the fight. They're still stacking bodies. They're still doing what they should be doing. So it kind of makes you wonder, well, why? Is it gear or is it mindset? Is it tactics? Is it skill? Is it gear? If you look at if you look at the hierarchy of it, it's mindset, tactics, skill, and gear. Which is the most important? I would tell you that airports don't allow you to have your gun. So I'm going to guess gear isn't a factor. It's not a real factor. It does make it easier, but it's not the biggest factor, right? I don't know. Something I noticed is that, like I said, these things seem to be falling off their people's rifles, and I do know that shit's expensive. Like an aim point's like $700-800. Like Trijicon ACOG's like $1,000, $2,000. I don't know. All this stuff's kind of crazy fucking expensive. So, kind of concerns me that I've spent all this, we all go out there, we spend this money on this shit only to find out that long term no one's using it. I got myself a Trigicon ACOG or an Aimpoint T2 with a Aimpoint magnifier and fucking $1,000 worth of glass. Doesn't stay on the fucking rifle past 2 weeks into an engagement. That's kind of like why I bring that up. Light, sight, and sling. That's really realistically that's all you need. And even then, like I said, those things aren't sticking on. So have backup lights, have backup sights, i.e., iron sights. You should probably have those on your rifle. And a flashlight, manual flashlight. That I can show on camera. I don't have mine. That's right. It's on the charger. A friend of mine with Student of the Gun calls it the Fundamental Four. And it's what everyone should be carrying on their person at all times. A gun, a knife, a flashlight, and medical. Something sharp, something bright, and something lethal. You should have those things on you. Like if you were to meet me in the street, you should probably have one of those four things, all four of those things on you. And if not, why not? Explain. That's what I would ask you. I would interrogate you on that one. So there you have it. That's about all I intended to sign in and talk about. And it's been 47 minutes. So I talked about Musashi, talked about training Ozempic, why you should probably avoid being an Ozempic student. And good evening. You caught me at the tail end of this. Now the question is, did the title update itself? Or does it still say, you can restream? I'm learning. You can restream? I know I can restream. Forgot to put the damn title in. I'll probably check that my damn self. Do-do-do. 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 Do-do. Well, that's really super important. I'll see it later, and then I'll have to go in and edit it all myself. That's okay, Max. I probably should have notified people that I intended to do lives. My plan is to do these. Well, thank you. That's good to know. My plan is to do these on Mondays. Because all the cool guys like Gary and Sonny and everyone else seems to have theirs on a time schedule. So I intend to start doing these on a Monday. I got my copy of the 5 Rings, and instead of recording a video and talk about the Dokudo and the various precepts, I'm going to do it live so that we can hopefully have open discussion about realistic applications of what the old Japanese guy had to say from the young Japanese guy who's not Musashi. Spent a majority of my drive and live practice with truck gun that's equipped with excess iron sights. Great point. Yeah, I know Andrew does whatever. Yes, Uncle Guns. Iron sights, look, you may live your entire life never having to use them, but I have yet to hear of a person that says, God damn, I had iron sights in my gun and I never needed them. It makes me angry. But I have heard people say, oh, fuck, my battery fell out. And now I have no sight. I've heard that plenty. Or something happened to my optic. It broke. It was broken. I've seen that all happen enough times. So just saying, like, I understand red dots are really cool and make everything better. But have yourself a set of iron sights so that, hey, the dot died for whatever reason. The housing broke, the lenses broke, the battery fell out, the battery corroded, whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. Well, is the threat gonna say, "Oh, I understand your optic broke. I'll give you a fucking minute. Go find your battery." No, he's gonna be like, "Oh, good, you can't see me. You can't shoot at me. I'll shoot you." Um, so just having a set of iron sights. All AKs come with them. Yes, Max. I will tell you, there are multiple translations. I covered that earlier about why you should go out of your way to train with different people who they may say the same thing, but they'll all say it in different ways. And specifically, I was pointing out that I had procured 3 copies of the same book. This is the Hagakure, and the Hagakure. And it's important that and why that matters is it's the same book with 3 different translators, which means 3 different translations, which means the same thing is told to you 3 different ways. And just because you heard it one way, it's like, it doesn't make sense to me. Read it from the other translator. Oh, that way makes sense. It's similar in training. You go to one instructor, he says it one way, makes 0 sense to you, but you wrote it down in your notes anyways. I'll hold on to this because somebody will explain it. Then you train with instructor B. He explains it. Okay, still doesn't make sense. Instructor C. Oh, that's what he meant. That's what those other 2 meant. It just took me to instructor C to understand it. This just point out that you shouldn't just train with one person. Oddly enough, in one of these books of the Hagakure, give me a minute. I didn't save pages, which probably would have been a good idea before touching this book. Well, that's funny. Manliness is in a decline. I haven't read this one. I haven't read the Hagakure in a really long time. The wisdom of just one person is like a tree with no roots. I thought that was some deep wisdom there. Train with everybody. There is no right and wrong way. There's more than one path up the mountain. Yes, that's exactly it. 100% certainty, all red dots can fail. Yes, all red dots can fail, and I've seen enough of them do it. And it doesn't matter the brand. I've seen aim points die where Holosuns didn't. I've seen Holosuns die where EOTechs didn't. I've seen EOTechs die. I've seen Trigicons die. I've seen a lot of optics die. To the point that I don't really trust the fucking things. And I know it's like, you're 33. How do you sound like an old fuddy-duddy? Because I've seen enough of these things fucking explode, break, and die that that's why all my dots are QD. And all dots should be QD. And if they can't be QD, they don't belong on a gun. It's just my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. It's why I'm not really accepting of red dots on pistols, because they don't come with QD. That's simply it. If red dots had QDs, I would be far more open to the damn things. I mean, the logic makes sense. Put a dot on a handgun. Duh. But I can't take it off if there's something wrong. Battery die, housing die, glass break, all this stuff. And I've seen enough of them breaks. Can't really validate something that I can't get out of my way. It's like I can validate tires because I could take it off and put on a spare. So, that's just my 2 cents on dots. Every instructor has a piece of your puzzle, just takes either another outlook. Yes, in the words of Obi-Wan Kenobi, from a certain point of view. Yeah. Deep wisdom from Star Wars movies. I know. The good Star Wars movies, of course. And then the mediocre Star Wars movies. And I don't think Obi-Wan appears in the bad Star Wars movies, if I remember correctly. He does not appear in those movies. No, it's kind of like going to tactical response or going to Tremis Dynamics. Those two individuals, those two companies teach differently. And then you go and you train with someone like Sonny, who teaches extremely differently. Which one's wrong? Which one's right? There is a correct answer in this. The answer is none of them are wrong. They all just do it differently. That's it. It's a different aspect, different mindset, different thought process, different path up the fucking mountain. And that's that. There's no need for animosity in any of that. So that's why taking excessive notes is important, even on stuff you've heard before, right? One of my favorite examples is ability, opportunity, and intent. So that's how I've said it forever. And Masad Ayub says it differently. He says ability, opportunity, and then the hell does he say it? Anyways, he said it differently. And it kind of struck a chord. Like, why is that the word that we're using and not intent? The good news is I have a Google machine right at the palm of my hand. I talked about Ozempic information, and here I is Ozempic informationing. Ability, opportunity, and jeopardy. That's what it was, and jeopardy. So it's just a different way to say it, but it means the same thing. Is it wrong? No, it's not. It's just different words for the same thing. It's called synonym. So, that's how to not be an Ozempic student. Train with other people. Don't look for certificates. And you are more than allowed to question the instructor. I said this at the very beginning. You are allowed to ask your instructor, hey, what's the last class you attended? Similar to interacting with your surgeon. If you go in to have surgery done, you are allowed to ask the surgeon, what's the last seminar you attended? What's the last conference on, how on healing procedure or on this procedure you've done? When's the last time you did said procedure? When's the last time you've done any of these things? You're allowed to ask your surgeon that. You are certainly allowed to ask your instructor, hey, what's the last class you attended? When's the last time you did this drill? Are you willing to do this drill? This is to help prevent you from being an Ozempic student. Don't just take the instructor's words for it. There is some you should listen and just do. But if the instructor says, all right, I want you to draw the gun, shoot this target in this way, you say, would you mind demonstrating that for me? You're more than within your rights to ask the instructor to do that. And in the words of John Farnham, students will forgive a missed shot. They will never forgive a coward. And so instructors absolutely owe you the demonstration. So something to help students out there when they go out and get their training, get your fucking money's worth. This shit's expensive, man. I know. I got my class is $400. It's 300 rounds. I know it's considered cheap by our standards. But you factor in hotel costs, gas costs, food costs. If you just buy a gun, so you got the gun, the holster, the belt, the magazines, and everything else, you're definitely going to want a good set of night sights, everything else. This shit is really, really, really expensive. Get your money's worth. Take a lot of notes. Okay? Even stuff you don't think you need to know, because you will forget it. I kick myself every day. The first class I ever took, oddly enough, was with Sonny Pazikis. I wish I had taken more fucking notes, especially at that moment, because when I was on my way home, a whole bunch of the ideas popped in my head. I was like, oh, dear God, I have to pull over. And then I had to write them down. So, let's see. We're at 1 hour. I think that's good enough. So, are there any questions, comments, concerns, or constructive criticisms? I can wait a little bit for that. I find out that everyone shows up at 5:30 as opposed to 4:30 when I started this. Damn it. I'll iron out times better. But again, this is going to be I'm going to do this every week like all the cool guy instructors do. But I want to at least have something, and I'll be covering various parts of the Dokudo as prescribed by Musashi, and why that still matters in our modern day. So today was do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling. You pay for the class, aren't taking everything you can out of it. Yes. Don't cheat yourself. And this is why it's I was saying, don't be an Ozempic student. Don't be an Ozempic student. You paid for all this stuff, and it's expensive. Have a little bit of self-respect and take your shit and every last bit. So with that, I'm going to go. You all have a good night, and I will see you all next